Welcome to the Gen AI podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gen AI podcast, episode 39, L. Took us a little while to get here.
39, like the perfect age that I was a while ago.
How old do you feel?
Oh, no older than 15.
15, okay.
How old do I think? Oh, wait, it depends. How old do I think I am? No older than 15. How old do I feel? About 100.
Okay. Well, there's a big contrast there.
Yeah, clearly.
What's the mean?
My body's not keeping up.
Very good.
How old do you feel?
Me? I reckon 35.
Okay.
Yeah. I reckon 35. Maybe I like to think that I'm still 35 and I can do the things I did at 35. But yeah, episode 39. Little time has gone by because we've all been all over the show. It feels like a theme every time we miss a couple of weeks. You've been traveling, Al. Greg's been traveling. I've been traveling. Lots has happened in the meantime as well. Should we start there? Where were you? Where have you been?
On holiday, mate. For once, just avoiding everything.
Playing golf, drinking pina coladas on the beach.
Yeah,
pretty
playing
much.
golf on the beach.
Amazing. Well, good. That's important as well, right? It's important to take some break. But Greg's actually not traveling for this episode. He's actually not feeling well. So hope you get better soon, Greg. And
nothing like some hot lemon and honey.
And whiskey.
Yeah, and the usual recommendations that
everybody
says.
You did miss out the last episode before. So we released episode 38, which was Fight Night at Birmingham's CASA community of practice, which was really cool. But the one before that, Greg and I were actually in person and we were sipping on whiskeys, but you were traveling. You were at the Western Winter Workshop playing golf.
Indeed, I was, yeah. And then I went on holiday.
And then you went on holiday, so it's been a little while. But no, that was a fantastic episode. You might want to chip in on some of the topics we discussed there. But before we get into that one, we thought we'd kick off with Mythos because it's making
the
some
biggest
interesting
PR
waves.
stunt of the month.
Well, that's the thing, right? It could be that because we don't know. But what do you think? Is it real? Is it that dangerous? But what is Mythos? Before we jump into it, so those that haven't heard of Mythos, how do you explain Mythos? What is Mythos?
Yeah, if you haven't heard of it, apparently Anthropic developed a model specific for security that appears to be so good that it found vulnerabilities in everything. And by everything, I mean like every single open source package, every single private package. So apparently they have a 0-day exploit on everything on the planet. And what they decided to do is not release the model and give selective access to open source organizations that ask for it so they can plug some holes before the universe collapses if they release the model. There's a lot of opinions floating around. I spoke to a few people that tested it. It is a good model. How far is it from Claude 4.7 Opus or GPT 5.5? I think that's probably the question, and maybe like they put a better harness around it rather than just have like an incredible model that is like a couple of generations ahead of everything. That said, it's not unbelievable that something like this would happen, right? And I think the writing's on the wall that if you write any code, or even worse, you have code that you've written that something has written for you and never even read it, just assume that you've been breached, which is the same as API keys. If you use OpenClaw and share anything with it, just assume that that's been leaked. So, the default position is secure by design, and that always works. But I am also skeptical that it is that good. And a few people are skeptical that it's that good because, hey, look, I can tell you that we've come up with a model that solves project management and that we used it to build a hypothetical skyscraper in 3 days.
You wouldn't know unless you used it.
No. How do you know that what I'm saying is real? Or maybe I'm overstating it.
Absolutely. But maybe you're
And, you
not
know,
either.
like, it's not like in this day and age, anyone is overstating things at all, right? No, has not happened. Not a single time anyone has overstated the capabilities that their AI models or system or agent has.
Yeah. I guess the interesting thing is if you think of any marketing ever throughout the history of marketing, it's always made promises.
You mean lies, right? Okay. Good.
What does your friend Bent call it? Strategic misrepresentation, right?
I mean, that could have also been the synopsis. I'm going to stop. You almost made me fall for it.
It's been a while. I'm just trying to poke the bear bits and see what works.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting because if it is true and if it is that powerful, it is pretty scary in terms of what the vulnerabilities are. Because, as you say, assume anything and everything that you put out there, has a potential flaw, and it will find it.
I mean, if not Mythos, something else within the next 12 months will be at that level, right? So I think just assume that it's going to happen. I doubt that it's today because we would have seen a lot more things collapse, I think. We did see like one vulnerability come out that I was like, I raised my eyebrows because apparently there's been a bug in the Linux kernel, I think it was. So there's a vulnerability that's been around in every single version of Linux and BSD, I think, since 2007 or something stupid like that. It basically means that every single machine and every phone in the world and every computer in the world and every server in the world and like literally everything is affected. And that one was like a little bit like, this come from models doing static analysis, but the security researchers that revealed it like came up with like there's literally like a 300 byte Python script that exploits everything, and it's just so crazy. And like, how has that never been found?
Well, you know what's interesting, because it does build off the chat Greg and I had a couple of episodes ago, where one of the key things, and I asked him this question, which maybe you give your take as well. I said to him, Greg, it's okay. So if you had to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, in the next 5 years, which jobs would absolutely disappear? And then I asked him, which does he think, top 3 or 5 would absolutely be around that we don't have today. We actually explored it together, and one of the things we came up with was someone or something validating if if software in the project or any field really can do what it says. And so not necessarily like a checker trade or a witch or that type of thing, but more akin to a background check on a person. Because if you look at agentic AI or AI agents, they probably behave more similar to a human in terms of if they've given the autonomy to do things and make decisions and decide for themselves what to do. So you've got to assess the behavior, and how do you verify and validate that the behavior is safe and ethical and all that type of thing. And it's quite interesting because if you bring it back to what we've just discussed around Mythos, is Mythos in a certain way is finding those vulnerabilities in things, not necessarily AI agents, but it brings me back to, well, can AI agents safeguard other AI agents for use? But yeah, what do you think of on that topic of verifying and validating and the application of technology to safeguard itself?
There's a lot to unpack here. So maybe let's start with validation. So like that is already happening through, for the most part nowadays, it's benchmarks. But if you look at benchmarking plus something that I've been saying for ages, which is evals, but also I would say things like chatbot arena, right? Where like they're literally competing against each other with an ELO rating, right?
So you said a few things there that some people might not know about, right? What's an eval? What's an elo rating? What are all these sort of techie things that people aren't aware of that might be keeping AI in check, or at least giving it some sense of guardrails?
Yeah, so evals is a very simple concept, right? You evaluate what your agent is doing and you score it and you choose whatever the best option variant is. And it's similar to benchmarking, but it's more open-ended, because benchmarking, you have to get the right answer to a set of problems.
Who does that eval? Is that you do it yourself, or is it someone else? Is it external? Is it independent? How does that work?
Well, every single team that builds anything should be doing evals, right? Because otherwise they don't even know how well their system is working. But then you also have external evaluation, right? This is what a lot of people are doing with the public models. And then, like, the one that I like is things like Chatbot Arena, right? Which, like, so ELO ratings is something that started from chess, but it's really a way of rating anything in a group where you can do comparisons 1 versus 1. So whenever you can have a 1 versus 1 match and there's a winner, you can then calculate this ELO rating, right? And the idea is that you have like your standard middling models around 1200, and then you go all the way up, but it is exponential number-wise, because it is literally a rating like how much do you beat everybody else. And human capabilities in chess are fairly static, right? So you talk about an ELO 2600 player, which is, grandmaster level. An ELO 2600 from today roughly feels similar to an ELO 2600 from 20 years ago, right? But also, because it's only relative comparison, right? If the tide rises, the ELO kind of stays static. So that becomes interesting, because like you could start removing models from the pool, right? And we have, right? But the Chatbot Arena does this, where they take every single available model and they pit it against each other on the same problems, and then they choose which is the winner on each match, right? And it's interesting because like you can actually see that models that had 1200 a year ago are different to models that have 1200 today, but they would have been beaten anyway. It's a relative measure. It is, I think, probably the best way to actually compare models at this point in time, because you're literally pitching them against each other on something that you care about, right? So like you could have an ELO rating for models on a certain subset of tasks, right?
And where do people go and find these ELO ratings? I mean, and why does it matter to the vast majority of people listening to this?
Well, it does. I say it matters to the vast majority, but it matters only to those who care about model performance, right? Or agent performance.
Which is becoming more and more people, right? Because it's impacting more and more people. So
yeah. You can go to like Chatbot Arena maintains ELO ratings for every single model variant that gets made available. That's probably where I would start. And there's probably more specific ones. I don't think there is one for things like project controls, but in the grand scheme of things, who cares about project controls anyway?
Me and you, maybe Greg, when he's not feeling
but like you'll see like ELO ratings for coding, you'll see ELO ratings for tool calling and that kind of stuff, which like has much bigger scope for models.
Yeah. And I think, although it sounds quite geeky, right? It's one of those where if we understand what the key performance indicator, for lack of a better phrase, if we understand what the KPIs are, to understand the tools we're using, so we know how good they are or aren't, then that's a big thing, right? It's like kind of knowing, I guess, if you've got good tires on your car or not, how much tread is on them. Do you need to change them? Maybe not if you need to change them, but it's kind of knowing the performance of the vehicle or the thing that you have. I don't know if that's the best analogy. Maybe golf. You love your golf. So maybe knowing
golf is quantitative, right? You have a score. I think it's different. I think it's more of a is my Lambo faster than your McLaren? Right?
Okay, yeah.
Where the answer really is it depends, right? Are we doing this in a straight line? Are we doing it on a circuit? Is a circuit Monte Carlo? Is it Suzuka? Is it Daytona? What is it, right? And the result is going to be different every time. But if you can race every single car on every single circuit and you do it 1v1 on all possible pairings, then you get a comprehensive view by which you can score how relatively fast a car is. Because you also know that, my Lambo is faster than the average VW Golf.
When did you get the Lambo and what color is it? Amazing. Well, the golf
I bought the
analogy
Euros because I've got 2 kids. No, I'm joking. I don't have a Lambo.
The golf analogy I was going to use was if you have the same club and you and I were the models, your model would work far better than mine with the same club because I have no technique and I don't play golf.
Fair,
but
yeah,
anyway.
but I think there's the problem with that is that there's an assumption of some things being equal, whereas for the most part they're not.
Yeah,
right. And they're not because the harnesses are going to be completely different for each model. And
well, yeah, this is true. Yeah. How do people wade through the noise? Just use ELOs?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not something that you can use religiously, right? Because it still depends on what is the ELO calculated on, right? What were the matches? So sadly, there's no single answer, right? You can try stuff and maybe you can end up in a world in a few years from now where there might be entities that give external verification of are these claims valid and does this model or does this agent do what it says it does?
Do you think it's a government or professional body responsibility?
No, probably an ISO or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Independent body.
Yeah, the same way you go and get an ISO 27001 or 30001 or whatever other ISOs are available. You could go and get an ISO.
But again, that's statics. I mean, the thing with an AI agent, let's say, it's constantly changing. How many iterations of Barry do you put out? It's alone internally iterate.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that ISO has to be continually re-verified, right? It is 2026 after all, and it's not. Auditors are gonna dislike this, but it's not like you need to have an auditor every time, and you can actually plug your agent into something that verifies your agent, right? And if it passes these tests, it does the things that it says it does.
I feel like ISO is the wrong tool. We don't have the tools yet to test the technology, and that's the challenge.
No, we definitely have the tools to test them. We definitely have. If you show up with an agent and you claim I say that this agent can do this, then it takes very little time and effort to set up tests to verify that what you said is true.
Fine. So maybe I used the wrong wording, not tools. I think we have the wrong processes or institutes, the way we've structured ourselves to validate and verify things for the world we currently are not going to be living in. I just don't think we're set up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just a big believer in the fact that the market and by extension the universe are going to be very good at just doing this job. Because if you build something, claim it does X, and then it only does 10% of X, you're not going to be in the market for a long time. You'll swindle a few people for a few years, and then you're going to start losing customers or getting sued or...
So basically public trial.
Maybe public trial, but also just, run out of money and go bankrupt.
That too.
Right? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be crucified for it. You just...
Well, you're in the world more than me. Are people still throwing millions and billions into AI startups? Is the trend still continuing?
It depends. I don't think you can do the thing that... I say that, but then there's always someone that's going to prove me wrong. And it happened 6 times last year anyway. But I was going to say, I don't think you can do the thing anymore where you split from a lab and go raise $2 billion seed. But people are still doing it. So yes, I think. I wanted to sound cynical and jaded about it, but maybe I'm just jealous. But it does feel like it's not just money being thrown around anymore. This was definitely the case 2024, 2025, where like all you needed was, I say all you needed, right? Like a just, which is a 4-letter word, a PhD from Stanford, 2 ICML publications, or 1 ICML, 1 year IPS, and a year at OpenAI, and then you could literally go raise a 200 million seed. Now it doesn't work that way anymore. I think you have to I think they've cottoned on that just showing up as like, gonna be an AI lab and we're gonna build frontier models isn't enough. You need to like actually have a plan of how you're gonna make money with it. It's not that hard though. Like, I mean, like once you have those things, figuring out how you're gonna make money with it isn't that hard, right? Like, I'm a little bit disappointed with the things that have been coming out of what's it called? Mira Murati's new company. Is it Thinking Machines? Thinking Machines Lab, something like that. If it's not Thinking Machines, it's Thinking Machine or Machine That Thinks, whatever. Thinking Machines Lab, I think, is the right name. I've been a little bit disappointed because she poached a lot of really good people, raised an enormous amount of money, and then what they announced was, oh yeah, we're going to build a platform to just fine tune your own model. Surely there's more that you could have been doing with that firepower. But I think that is also a result of this constraint of you have to have a plan of how you're going to make money quite quickly, because, you know, if we're going to give you $200 million, you better know how you're going to come back with 20 billion in 2 years.
Yeah. It's interesting because, as you say, there is still money being thrown at technology. And I know it's on the label for this podcast, Gen AI. But more
I think
and more,
the volume of money is going up still, but in different ways.
Yeah. It's not just randomly, or what seemed like randomly, being thrown at everything. But the thing I wanted to ask you behind it all, and I saw something interesting. I don't know if this is true or not, so maybe you can validate or verify or pass your opinion on it. Are data centers the bottleneck of AI progression?
No. Sam Altman has said as much as well, so I'm not saying anything new, right? So we don't have that claim of like Alan said it 6 months before everybody else. Like, the bottleneck is going to be power.
Okay.
For a multitude of reasons, but one is like right now you can buy equipment to fill a data center quite quickly. You can't buy the power and the power generation or power supply or whatever, however it is you want to get power to it. And by extension, things like transformers. Those are still the bottleneck. They're on incredibly long leads. I don't believe that we're going to get out of that bottleneck anytime soon.
And what about if we did? What about the unintended consequences of heating up the globe with all of that power?
Well,
because it's got to go somewhere, right? It doesn't just disappear.
If you know, I mean, the expression, that's the part of all this that pisses me off, right? Because everybody's talking about SMRs and renewables and wind farms, and then there's literally like gas turbines being put down everywhere, which is like, sure, one level better than burning coal, but it's also incredibly stupid. But there is no other option, right? Like, if you're in the queue for grid connection for your data center, which is ready to go, and you have to wait a year and a half because of that, because you're in the queue for connection, you're going to just go and buy some gas turbines, right? And so it's still also a consequence of power generation and distribution.
Yeah, it's scary to think, but let's, I guess, bring it back home to project controls.
Before you do that, I'll tell you something that I've been really enjoying, and I'm going to even like set up for this one. I've been enjoying the downfall of Cursor.
Okay, tell us about the downfall of Cursor then.
Cursor is in the middle of this fall from grace where, you know, it was the fastest startup to $100 million ARR and the fast startup to $1 billion and whatever else, whatever other records they crushed. And now Claude Code is like literally just eating up their lunch, right? So, and we see this in all sorts of places, right? But like, developers shift their pattern from, you know, autocomplete and something that you do in the development environment to ask Claude to do stuff and review the output, or ask an agent to do stuff. And it might be Codex, it might be something else, it might be Gemini CLI, whatever, others available. And that's completely blown up the model for Cursor, because like there's I know a lot of developers that barely even open it anymore. And they were relying a lot on the token resale revenue as well, because a lot of it was, yeah, you burn $100 in tokens and we charge you 105. Plus the whole thing where there's this like weird camouflaged acquisition by SpaceX, which is what, right? But like SpaceX they've invested 10 billion with an option to buy them out. I don't actually understand the mechanics of that deal, but it is basically an acquisition. And so now everyone's jumping, and it is wild like how quickly you can go from the fastest growing multi-billion dollar company to the fastest dying at the flip of a coin right now.
And again, just for those that don't know, what is Cursor? What was it used for? Why did it grow so fast?
Yeah, so Cursor was is it's not dead, right? Like it's a IDE, which is a development environment where you literally go and write your code. And yeah, it grew just so quickly. I don't know the exact numbers, and like maybe we can put something in a caption or something or a link. But it has been the fastest company to reach certain revenue targets in history of all companies ever, right? And their whole proposition was, well, we take an ID that already exists, which is open source, which is VS Code, right? But we plug in models. And that's literally all they did, right? They plugged in, I don't know what models there was initially, but a way to use LLMs to do autocomplete and then assisted coding. And then they built their own little agent patterns in there. And now they've got autonomous agents as well. But it feels like the attention has shifted. Attention has shifted away from that way of developing.
Yeah. It's interesting. And you talk about Claude Code, right? And although this might sound a bit geeky, I think this is actually quite relevant to the audience, because one of the things that I've been looking at quite a lot, which you'll have far more knowledge and experience than me, is Markdown files, skills, and specifically within Claude. And so what is a Markdown or .md file, and how is it used as a skill? Because I feel like if people out there understand this, it can actually unlock a lot for their personal productivity.
So I think people just give way too much weight to this idea of Markdown, but like Markdown's been around for ages, and it is, and by ages, I mean probably like 15, 20 years, right? But it's literally a plain text file, and it has special encodings for a header or a bullet point list. Like where that thing when you do star space and you type a bullet point, or you type some text and it renders to a bullet point, that's what Markdown is. Yeah, Markdown has replaced everything else in terms of notation because LLMs understand it. That's really the only thing here. LLMs work in plain text. Markdown is a fairly well compressed way of writing rich text in a sense, right? And so every LLM by default speaks in Markdown. And then you take that Markdown and you render it to HTML, right? That's how you get bold, bullet points, titles, all that kind of stuff in like pretty much every chat application. And it has replaced a lot of other ways of representing data, right? So we used to have XML, which was great if you were writing code in Java because it was structured, etc. JSON was a little bit more human readable. It was a little bit more compact, but still not great. The other one that sometimes appears mostly for declarative configuration is YAML, but those are all formats for representing data structures. And I think most of it's gone away, and you just use Markdown to represent it. And then there's skills, which is like people write skills, but really like you could write a skill and just plain English language and saying like, this is how you do this thing, and here's the steps that are involved, and here's the things that you need. That is it. That is what a skill is, right? Telling an agent, well, if I ask you to do X, these are the steps that I want you to take.
So it's sort of a templated instruction list, if you will.
Yeah,
I'm dumbing it down, that it will relate to or call up and follow, so you don't have to retype it every single time. And the reason I think for most people it's worth knowing is it just saved my skin the past couple of weeks, where I had basically 2 conferences every week the past couple of weeks, plus I still had to fit in all the other work. And you know what that does. And I had to do a couple of presentations and get things together and a few documents, like, had to put some thought into it. But what I didn't have to do was all of the editing of getting the right colors and the logos and the layouts and making it look smart, because good old Yash, Yash, he created a skill, our reply skill that just went, yep, if it's an A4 PDF, this is what it looks like. If it's this, it's this. If it's a PowerPoint, it's this. And you literally, it's still your content. You're still thinking about it, but it just spits out this really clean document at the end. And instead of you spending, I guess, hours editing the thing so it looks nice, it's really just giving it the content. And then within minutes, you've got it. And I just feel like those type of things help people, and you're not putting anything sensitive in there necessarily when it comes to an MD file, because with something like visual aesthetics, it's just, here's the color palette, this is the font you use, that type of thing. So I'm talking about really tiny little margins, but as we know, those marginal gains, right? Every 1% adds on top of each other. And so I think if you haven't explored it yet, folks, go check it out. I certainly found for myself that it saved me a hell of a lot of time.
Yeah. With regards to skills, there's also like a different perspective that you can take. So it's kind of based on the same idea. What we did for Barry skills is slightly different, but you can only really do this with a structured agent, where a skill in Barry isn't just a set of instructions, but it's a blessed sense, right? It's like, so you have this set of instructions, but also with each skill that we publish, we associate, here's the list of actions that is like the blessed way of executing the skill. Because it's a little bit more structured, it gives you a lot more control, and it makes it way more reliable, right? So like in the world of projects, one of your skills could be, I want to do my monthly progress checks, right? And it might include a report, whatever else. All those steps, you kind of want them to be the same every month. You don't want to leave it so that, the agent has a little bit of leeway, right? And so then you end up with like, it's slightly different this month because it did these 10 checks instead of these other 10 checks, and like 5 of them were the same, but 5 were different. And you don't want to have that kind of thing. So the repeatability became important. So we did it a little bit differently. So you can't really just do it with a Markdown file. And it's not just us, right? There's a lot of other agents that do skills in that way. And so there's these 2 ways that are slightly different, but skills are effectively, here's how you do a thing.
And genuinely, I think the vast majority of people don't realize this, that it's actually very easy to create a skill as well. If you're in Claude Code or in Claude, you just say, make this type of skill for me, and it makes it. And if you want to know about it, ask it how to use it. But as you say, you're using it with Barry. And I know actually behind the scenes, we're talking about PCG and the next AI day. And I just wonder if you could perhaps peel the curtain a little bit for those that are listening, to tell us what might be in store. Do we have a date? Is it June, July?
It is June.
End of June, 25th, I think.
25th. Yeah, I think so. June 25th. Yeah.
And the last one we had was a massive, massive success.
Yeah, so we did a podcast episode 5 minutes before we started.
We did podcast. You had AI Day, and PCG was absolutely amazing at NQ64.
Yeah, that was really good. I think. Yeah, I think we're gonna do a double feature again if we can. What can I tell you? So, in fact, I have a very good thing that I can tell you, which is go look at my LinkedIn post from today where I'm ranting about AI agents in projects, because, and this happens way more than you think, right? And we were talking about, unverified claims, like, geez, the unverified claims with AI agents in projects are rampant. So I got a little bit tired and wrote a very long rant, and I couldn't stop myself from posting it.
I love it.
But really, like, we're all tired of like an agent that tells you, oh yeah, the critical path is critical, right? Or an agent that tells you you have 3 activities that you need to look at. Like, it is a waste of water when we do that. Like, I don't know, like say that it costs like a gallon of water. Like, you should have used that to water the plants somewhere, and it would have been a better use, right? And I think we started asking ourselves, what matters, right? As usual, and this is the beautiful thing, the answers to these fundamental questions do not change. It doesn't matter how much new AI you invent and how many new terms you come up with, like agents, whatever. What matters is really only one thing, which is, what did I do with my project? And then you can unpack that a little bit and say, like, okay, what does that mean? Right. And like, really, it's like, well, it was heading in one direction. Great. Congrats. Right. Like, your critical path is critical. Good job. Is that good? Is it bad? Is it going to lead you to complete failure? What are you going to do about it? Right. And that's like fundamental. Like, what matters is, what are you going to do about it? And it's the only thing that matters. If I could take the whole of project controls, sweep it under a carpet, and have only one thing come out, is, what are you going to do about it? Right. And like, this applies to project management and, well, really, like everything in life, really, like, because like, this could also be about like getting ill. What are you going to do about it? Right. I have to do this amount of work. What are you going to do about it? And so really, we just started asking that question repeatedly for 6 months until we were sick. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And I think that's really what is changing now. And this is not even an AI day thing. The AI day part is interesting, but we're changing this now. That idea that, oh, we should unpack the schedule and we should go look at the documents and all these things, like, don't matter. And actually what matters is the thing that your superintendent comes up with at midnight on a Tuesday, because he's lived through like 15 years of abuse and things going wrong. And he says, actually, no, we're going to make this change. We're going to do it differently. This is what we're doing differently. And this is why. And this is how it saves us 2 months. Right? That's what matters. That's what you're going to do about it anyway. Because then what he does is he writes you an email or sends you a message, whatever, right? Like, if it's midnight, he's probably going to write you an email because he's not going to get on the phone and call you. Unless it's so bad that everybody's working night shifts already. And he's going to say, like, this is what we should do. And then you look at it and you're like, yeah, let's do that. Done. End of, right? That's what we need more of.
And I think we sleepwalking into more and more or less and less of that, because people aren't engaging their brains. They're literally using large language models to think for them. And so you're not going to get the superintendent at 12 p.m. at midnight thinking of this, because they won't know how.
No, I think you still are. Like, I mean, like, it's quite cynical to say that people are using LLMs to think for themselves. Like, I think we were already heading in that direction without artificial intelligence. Like, the proliferation of report mania and schedule cottage industry of like, hey, we need to just like, look, I love the AAC, but there are some things that like really annoy me about it, which is like, oh yeah, is this a class 3 or is it a class 2 estimate? Like, who cares? Like, the only question that matters is, what are you going to do? Right? But like, the more we push for the rigid, over analytical, rule following, and that's not even about the rules, but like, bureaucratized paperwork to a certain extent, the less we're going to do the, what are you going to do about it? Right? Because then all of a sudden, also making a change is so much effort that you give up the moment you've thought about it.
Which is interesting, because as a profession, we want certainty on projects. We want, as Eddie O'Beng calls it, paint by numbers, right? We want to join the dots knowing that here's number 1, here's number 2, and eventually you'll come out with the picture and you color it in. we know that that's not how projects are. They're messy and they're ongoing and they evolve and they're chaotic. And it's not paint by numbers. Some are, if you probably more akin to a manufacturing plant, or maybe if you're putting up, something modular, perhaps. But most of the time, it's not that way. The other thing that I think we lose is that artistic flair. One of the first things I noticed when I came to the UK was how old the buildings were. South Africa is a very young country, and everything's fairly plain in a sense compared to the UK with all its intricate designs and its various eras and the various centuries of styles that it has, and Europe as well. But you see modern buildings these days and they're all sort of flat.
I have a wonderful story about that. So if you go along the north bank of the Thames from Westminster Bridge all the way, and you keep going east and you go all the way to almost St. Paul's, right? We're talking about embankment, really, right? The light posts on the embankment are one of the most beautiful things that you could do with a lamppost. They're all Victorian, so we're talking about 150 years old, and they're all mass produced.
Really?
Yes. So what that tells me is that we can mass produce beautiful things, right? Because you look at them, they're beautiful, they're incredibly decorated, and that's why people love them, right? What does a modern lamppost look like? Right? It's like a curved stick with a neon coming out of it, and we seem to be in a race to the bottom for functional design that is minimalistic and just is literally the language of depression.
Yeah, we live in a world that's colorless,
Oh my God, everybody's wearing black and beige, and I've had enough of it, right? But this is the thing, right? And the moment you realize this is not even about moving to mass production and industrialization, but it's actually about convenience and profit margin.
I think it's the other way. I think it's profit margin first, right?
But the two things go hand in hand, right? Why don't we have beautiful laptops in sculpted wood? Well, sculpted wood, no, because you'd have to do it by hand. But why don't we make them with incredibly ornate flowers and you're casting the metal in the same exact way?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not Apple? Why not Microsoft and Dell and whoever else produces laptops? HP, others exist.
Yeah, and I used to love, this is a while ago, in 2013, 2014, my favorite laptops were Alienware because they were really decorated in a sense, modern ways, but full of aliens, a lot of detail, a lot of stuff. But I don't believe they would cost more to produce, right? Because you're a laptop company, it's a commodity, right? It just looks a lot cooler. And they made their own keys for the keyboard that had little alien signs on them. And you could get there, right? And it's the economy of scale is sometimes an excuse.
Yeah, I think and maybe that's also the Italian style coming out in you. And maybe Italian should be head of product design for technology everywhere.
No, I mean, look, sure, maybe there's a cultural thing for a little bit more flair. But, whatever your definition of beautiful is, there should be an option for it. And a lot of it is we're just being all pushed into this homogenous direction that doesn't even make sense anymore. You can now make small production runs of things at a cost that is maybe 10, 20% more of hundreds of thousands of units because we've gotten so much better at things like milling and additive manufacturing, that kind of stuff, right? And I get wound up easily by anything, obviously, as we know, but I get wound up by this modernist view, right? And actually, I've got a good example for you. So one of the things that hasn't gone that way is guitars. And so if you look at even a cheap 300-pound guitar nowadays, electric guitar nowadays, there are details to it that are very similar to the very expensive ones in terms of how ornate they are and how beautiful they can be. And like, then, expensive guitars go into like, oh yeah, but this one was done by a machine instead of being done by hand, and there's all that kind of thing. But really, like, £300 Epiphone is probably one of the most beautiful things you could buy.
Yeah. As you say, it depends what beauty is for you. If you ask most South Africans, a nice, thick steak on a braai is beautiful.
Sure, absolutely, right?
And you don't need much for that, just a fire and a nice
But
piece.
what if, in the name of progress and scale, all of a sudden the definition of a steak was that all meat gets ground up and pressed into the same square shape?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we've got this burgerification of everything.
There we go. We've hit it.
We've got a word for it.
Episode 39, burgerification of industry.
Yeah.
I love chatting to you, Al, because we can go all over the show with anything and everything and explore it. And I love the fact that we've got to burgerification on this episode. It's something brand new for you folks. If you've lasted this long, thank you.
If you're asleep, you're welcome.
Absolutely. A lot of people struggle with sleep these days. And so it is our privilege and pleasure to put you to bed. No, we have a lot of fun on it as well. It's good to see you. It's been a while, as I said, Al. We'll catch up, no doubt, in person too. Before we head off, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you said in person, right? I'm going to make a shout out because this week, and I don't know if this episode is going to come out in time, right? There's the CASA conference in Manchester. Yeah. I'm not going to be there, but you can see one of us.
Exactly. Yeah, well, this episode will come out after CASA's done.
No.
I'll try and get some snaps.
Well, we need to get this one out. Well, thank you to everyone who was there, and I hope you got your autographs from the good-looking person on the podcast.
I'll take some signed pictures of Al if you want to collect yours.
What we need is the Val autographs.
We do need the Val autographs.
You could literally bring anyone and say it's Val. Nobody's ever seen him, so.
Exactly. Well, not on this podcast.
No.
But no, folks, you wouldn't have been able to listen to this episode and know where it is. In foresight and hindsight, CASA was in Manchester. And we did have lots of fun.
Good. And I see that you're learning about superimposition.
Absolutely. Maybe I am an LLM myself. I can do both at the same time. No, nice. I can't. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for spending the best part of an hour with us. Hopefully you found that entertaining, a little bit informative. If none of the above, do let us know. As always, hit us up on LinkedIn.
No, if none of the above, don't let us know. If you liked it, tell us what you liked. And send us chocolates.
Chocolates?
Yeah.
You've lost so much weight, El. What's with the chocolates?
Is it good?
Okay. Sugar-free chocolates.
Do you not like chocolate?
Dark chocolate, perhaps.
Okay.
Not a massive
chocolate to Dale, milk chocolate for me.
There we go. We'll leave it there, folks. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.